be creative here. Let's be called Amazon USA, or let's be called Honda Canada. You know, whatever it takes, and create even more icons and bigger stars in the game of sevens that people and young men and young women will aspire to be. Then, you know, we've got that opportunity, but we need to seize the day.
He's so dangerous. Freddy Krueger has nightmares about him.
Hello and welcome to the Rugby Hive. I'm Dallen, Stanford, and despite my South African accent, I was fortunate enough to play rugby for the United States on the Sevens World Series.
And I'm MacDowell, a former Canadian Sevens international. Back in my playing days, I went head-to-head against Dallen in the USA.
For several years, Robin has coached international sevens for various countries, including Canada and Mexico. He's massively passionate about growing the game across the Americas through his MacDowell rugby programs at all levels. I'm currently a commentator for World Rugby, most recently broadcasting the Rugby World Cup in Japan, as well as the amazing Sevens World Series.
More than a decade later, we are teaming up to bring you insights from legendary players and coaches from around the world.
All legends have a story. The Rugby Hive podcast is here to share it.
Welcome to the Hive.
Oh, he's more dangerous than climate change.
Welcome to episode 6. This is our first head-to-head featuring Mike Friday and Henry Paul. What a treat to have two sensations on at one time. Mike, coaching the US Eagles for the last 7 years or so. That's how I've known him. Took over from Matt Hawkins. And commentating, of course, the US Eagles playing as well has been always entertaining. When Mike comes in halftime and drops a few F-bombs, you got to apologize to the millions watching around the world. He certainly keeps us guessing. And then Henry Paul, I only actually met Henry. I knew of his legendary status as a player in the league and rugby union circles, but I met him through Carl Tanana, the great Zulu warrior at the Dubai Sevens, and just wonderful to see just such brilliant characters involved, you know. And I believe, Robin, you've been stepped by the great man yourself?
Stepped, run over, offended. Yeah, I first met HP on the World Sevens Series, him playing for England. I was on the receiving end, I think, when he was on loan from the 15s in George, in your part of the world, southern South Africa, and then most recently, obviously working together with him a bit in the Canadian men's setup, and from there, Mike Friday. Originally met him on the World Sevens Series. He was coaching England back in my early days, and then just a big fan of him as a coach. Somebody I definitely look up to, having worked with so many different countries and building programs and just being successful. So it's really special to have them both featured on here as they're really close as well. What did you get up to this last week, and what do you got on the go this week?
Just a lot of beach, my friend, just getting outside, and it's so hot here in the summer in Westport, Massachusetts. Lots of beach rides as well on the bikes, some sunset jars. I'm definitely keeping the drinks well away from Verity so she can't steal them. So less social media for her, but at least more golden nectar for me. And then this coming week, my friend, still doing some work on the Rugby Town Sevens Rewind. Got a chance to speak to the mullet man this past week. It was a real highlight. His hair, though, I will say, is a bit of a letdown, my friend. He's going to have to get back to work on that mullet that made him famous at the Rugby Town Sevens last time. And yourself, my friend, I believe you went away this weekend for what would have been your actual wedding, right?
Yeah, we had some family in town, so we made lemonade out of lemons as always. The wedding will be postponed for a year here, but enjoyed southern Vancouver Island. Went to the West Coast. So busy with COVID, Canadians not being able to travel outside the country, so it looked like downtown Las Vegas in beautiful Tofino, Ucluelet, and bumped into the legendary Canadian Jeb Sinclair, one of Habana's old teammates there. So he bought a golden retriever. Him and his partner bought a golden retriever at the same time as my fiance and I did. So, as retired rugby players, we set up a puppy date on the Long Beach in Tofino and let our dogs run wild. But it was good to see the big man and to meet his pup. And back to work this week and dialed right in. So looking forward to doing a bit of planning with rugby and getting caught up on the Hive this week.
Beautiful. And any shout outs or thank yous you got for us?
Yeah, just a good friend, Brett Cannonberg. He's doing a lot of work in behind the scenes to fire up MacDowell Rugby. We're hoping to kickstart again this fall with a return to play plan. So there's a lot of paperwork to do to make sure all the athletes and staff are safe, of course. But he did me a great favor. He framed my one of my Mexican World Cup jerseys that the girls gave me. and he's got a side business called Canwood Timberworks, and he does that on the side outside of being a school teacher, and just a huge community guy. So shout out to Brett Cannonberg and Canwood Timberworks. How about you?
Well, firstly, I need to get some jerseys framed. So I don't know if he's an international star yet, so we'll have to get him involved with that, But I just was very impressed with our last response to episode 5, Fijian fans of Sia Kalinisau. And it was just great to see everybody, hitting the play button. And then seeing Ben Ryan this past week post that, it has been 4 years to the day that his side lifted that gold medal at the 2016 Olympic Games. So that was really special, and it's cool to see how, we timing wise, we featured him, and then all of a sudden it happened as well. But a couple of little shout outs from my side. Tiger Rugby, founded by the great Paul Holmes and James Walker, 2 good personal friends of mine from the Republic that are doing wonderful work here in North America. TigerRugby.com, you can check them out online. They've got some camps coming up because there's not much rugby going on here in the US currently. So it's good to see them still keeping things going. And then another rugby friend of mine, this one with Palos Verdes Rugby in Southern California, Jeremy Wilkinson, he's founded Focus Care Products, which is a rugby-owned company that focuses on CBD oils, tinctures, a couple of great things, and they're called focuscareproducts.com. So he sent me a bunch of samples, so I'm keen to test them out and see how they go. And
make sure you send a shipment to the Mullet Man.
Yeah, the Mullet Man, exactly. He'll need some of that. Of course, Rugby Coffee, we need to get some products to you because I know you've been funneling 55 jars. So we'll get that out pretty soon to you, my friend. Without further ado, here is episode number 6. Today's guests are legends Mike Friday and Henry Paul. Mike Friday is one of the most successful sevens coaches of all time. He led England on the HSBC World Rugby 7 Series to 3rd in 2005 and 2nd in 2006, with Henry Paul being a standout member of that talented squad. Friday then took Kenya from 12th to 5th in the world, their best ever finish in sevens history. And recently, he turned potential into podium finishes, with Team USA climbing the ladder from 13th in 2014 to series runners-up in 2019. His side was the most consistent team on the planet in 2019, playing in all 10 semi-finals. Friday will take the USA Eagles for the second time to the Olympic Games. This time it's Japan 2021. The former England Sevens captain is also 2-time winner of the Anglo-Welsh Cup with London Wasps. Henry Paul has done what many dream of but can never accomplish, play both rugby league and rugby union successfully. So much so that he represented New Zealand in rugby league 24 times from 1995 to 2001, scoring 121 points and playing in 2 Rugby League World Cups. The following year he debuted for England in rugby union, playing in 6 tests from 2002 to 2004 and later the Sevens World Series. He has played well over 500 professional club matches. In league he has represented Wakefield Trinity, Wigan 147 times, scoring 550 points and winning the Super League Grand Final, Bradford Bulls 100 times, amassing a remarkable 960 points and winning the Super League Grand Final, and Harlequin 63 times, scoring 240 points. In union, he has played for Bath, Gloucester, Leeds Carnegie and Rotherham. He has also won a silver medal in sevens at the 2006 Commonwealth Games and is the current Canadian Sevens head coach preparing for the Olympic Games in Japan. In today's episode, we talk about the England Sevens program being cut by the RFU in 2020 ahead of the 2021 Olympics. We also go down memory lane when Paul played for Friday on the Sevens World Series, as well as how he was able to represent both New Zealand and England. We talk about both guests, how they got started with coaching, their programs in USA and Canada as they prepare for the Olympic Games, and what it's like coaching against each other. What was touring like in the early years? Why is Friday named Giza? And why are Russians the friendliest people on earth? Here are legends Mike Friday, USA Sevens coach, and Henry Paul, Canadian Sevens coach. All right, gents, listen, thanks so much for joining us. It's quite a change that we've seen. The last time I think us four were at the same venue was Vancouver Sevens in March with 40,000 fans. And here we are all across the world. How are we doing there? HP, how's things going during this break?
Yeah, I'm coming quite a decent baker at the moment. Doing a bit of baking. Just trying to stay sane. A lot of analysis. Season seems to be wrapped up, so putting a lot of stuff together for individuals and the team, and trying to keep up to date on my COVID-19 knowledge. Every day is a bit of a challenge. I'm wearing pants today for your for your blog, for this video. That's nice to be able to put some pants on.
That's a real treat. So what's your favorite thing you've been baking?
I've been trying, I love banana bread. So different forms of banana bread. So I'm trying to throw in some sweet potato in my banana bread, just because I can at the moment. No, it's been really, really good trying different things. So
it sounds disastrous actually on this side with a sweet potato. Now, Mike, yourself, how are things going for you in England?
Well, I mean, it's difficult. We're in a bit of a lockdown, and I struggle if I'm not allowed to do things, and I'm not allowed to get into people. So, fortunately for the Americans, they're the other side of the pond. But I'm fortunate enough, here for the first time in about 5 years, I've been able to spend a lot of time with my two boys. So they literally are killing me every day, doing exercising in the gym, which is good for the waistline, but not good for the ego, as my youngest is 13 and my eldest is 17. So that's a bit of a humbling experience. And then I look forward to the weekends. And interestingly enough, we've got this, one of the previous clubs I played for, Wasps. We've got a WhatsApp group, which is the Wasps Legends, which is now up to 230 members. And we have a bit of fun over the weekend, kind of roll back, let's say, our childish years, and chuck a few kind of bar games through the weekend, which is great because you see videos of old faces that you haven't seen, and it just allows you to stay connected and remember a little bit of the past as well. So, yeah, it's difficult times, but you find a way, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Taking the positives out of it. Massive news in the rugby world. England Sevens program has been cut as of August 2020. The RFU is citing financial constraints in the current pandemic. England Sevens, just to remind our listeners, were silver medalists at the 2018 Sevens Rugby World Cup, and Great Britain, which fielded 8 English players, won silver at the 2016 Olympic Games. So, Mike, let's start with you, former England Sevens player, obviously, and coach. Your opinion on the news that just came out?
I mean, it's devastating news. It's gutting. I was there at the start when we started the legacy, and we picked up from where that great team in '93 had won the Rugby World Cup Sevens, and then England had fell away, and we rebuilt the program to create that development pathway that produced and helped so many England internationals go on to fulfil dreams in the 15s and the Premiership. It has changed and mutated to the program it is today, but nonetheless, I think it's a big part of the English landscape here, especially in the school sector and the community game. And the likes of Dan Norton, Tom Mitchell, and all of those guys are role models and icons amongst the younger generations of rugby players who aspire to be them. So I'm hopeful that sense is found and a solution, and maybe, just maybe, this is a bit of a strategic play to ensure that maybe we can get Team GB to the table, which could be the natural evolution in any event in the Sevens game in the UK.
Yeah, we hope so. Our thoughts obviously with those 18 contracted players as well.
HB, what's your take as a former player?
Yeah, look, I'll support Mike. I was surprised when they mentioned it. I know they've mentioned it in the past, over the last couple of seasons, the difficulties that the RFU are having behind the scenes, and it's the very little that read about it. But yeah, I've got to support Mike. That it is devastating. I was part of that legacy and part of that squad. Geez, back 2001 to 2006, probably the best times in my rugby career. We've been part of that squad. Whether it was training at Penny Hill Park or training wherever we were, because we moved around a bit, to going on the tours, which was just amazing times with some great players, some great guys, through wins and losses. So yeah, I feel for Tom, Mitch, and those guys, Dan. But I think the environment, the landscape is difficult at the moment.
Back the World Series landscape with England out.
Hard to say. Will it open doors for other teams and other nations and grow the game? Let's hope that if England can't reconcile and get something together behind the scenes,
then it opens the door for other nations. So maybe maybe there can be a positive in terms of the world game. But yeah, I support when you go to some of these school age tournaments that are mainly built around sevens and maybe tens. Kids do want to be Dan Norton. So it's going to be a massive shame that there's not those players to look up to, that they can replicate, copy. We all have role models. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult aspect. And in terms of World Rugby, I don't know. Mike's on the committee, coaches committee. He might have a bit more insight.
I mean, yeah, for me, I actually think this is a real opportunity for the Seven Circuit. I think, we have to change. It has to evolve. The whole Seven Circuit has to evolve. And, I've been quite vocal around private partnership or private investment to allow us to possibly franchise. And of course, that comes with a cost. But I think the series has to evolve. It has to change. It also has to be recognised for what it is. It's a big part of the rugby global landscape. The 15s is the kingpin, but truly, if the game is going to be global, then there has to be more than the usual suspects that can compete to win. And Sevens provides that opportunity in both the men's and the women's game for that to happen. So I believe that, we have to secure the World Seven Series. We have to think differently. We have to recognise and realise that as Sevens programs, maybe we have to partner and create a hybrid of the Formula One, the F1 model, as well as, something that Team GB did with Team Sky in the cycling many years ago. And I think there's a lot to be said there, because we can reposition the World Series, we can create the digital media broadcasting platform, then we truly can take this game global, which is what it's all about. It's about spreading the spirit, the values, the essence of the game of rugby, and the Olympics is the pinnacle. And that's why I hope and I sense I'm wanting Team GB and the teams, the home nations, Scotland, Wales and England to probably see sense and realise that Team GB could be the way forward and part of that evolution on the world circuit, which doesn't stop or not allow England, Scotland and Wales Sevens teams to participate and continue, because those pathways and those programs can be operated at Rugby Europe level, the Rugby World Cup Sevens level and the Commonwealth Games. So those pathways can feed into Team GB, which will allow the university system, the rugby system in the UK, which is evolving, whereby the university system of all these players that aren't quite making it at 18, 19, that are going into the almost like a kind of an American Canadian scholastic system, late developers, which our sport is renowned for, and then can be picked up again, rather than fall out of love with the game and not realise that there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to get where you want to get to. I mean, Rory McConaughey is the latest example through the England Sevens, and then you've got Jamie Davis with Wales and how he went about things, and then you've seen what's happened at Scotland with the likes of young George Horn recently. So it doesn't make sense right now, and I'm just hoping that they've taken this drastic decision to try and create an opportunity for change to happen. But it's just devastating for those players and the coaches and the management, all of those individuals that have given so much to England Sevens over the last, some of them 10 years, to be, I will be controversial, to be treated in the way that they've been treated. And, we all understand the cost of running a program, but by the same token, if it's underpins the essence of the community game, then surely you find a way to keep the dream alive and mitigate or manage some of those losses. So, yeah, heart goes out to all of them. But I hope some commercial business sense and some evolution can happen on the World Series, because we're in difficult times at the moment and we need to think differently, but we need to recognise that Sevens is very much a future of making sure that rugby stays global and stays relevant.
Yeah, my heart goes out to those athletes for sure. And I know in North America it's challenging, and obviously in the tier 2 nations it's even more challenging. And when it happens to one of the big fish, it makes media and gets people's hairs up a bit, right? So I guess HP, how has it affected the Canadian Olympic men's sevens program and the women's, I guess? And what's that landscape like?
Well, like, as you know, Robin, it's it's an amateur sport here in Canada. We do our best. Sevens players, they're probably some of the most talented footballers we've got in Canada. This squad's been together, experienced squad, for a while now, and they've obviously all holding on for their dream. There's some guys that have been started their rugby a long time ago. Probably played in because a few of them played in 2015 World Cup in the UK. So they've been around. They realise that that things can change quickly, and this pandemic has really affected our program massively. We know we're probably not going to play until probably the new year. Obviously, with Dubai and Cape Town being cancelled, so yeah, we're just trying to keep everyone fresh and healthy. That's the main goal. The Olympic Committee obviously do a fantastic job in providing funds for the guys, athletic assistance programs. So, and then education is a big piece of it as well. So the guys, we're on a reduced program, and everyone's kind of trying to get jobs and work part-time. It's a part-time program, and I think it's good for the mind and body, being able to work as well as and potentially a career path could come out of this as well. Because rugby sevens doesn't really have a career path for it. Fantastic game. It's a lot of time and commitment from the players, going to 10 tournaments a year. It's pretty much 6 months, so it's difficult. It's challenging, but they love it. We all love it. Coaches, managers, and when we get a bit of success against some of the top tier 1 nations, it feels even sweeter.
Yeah, HP, you're spot on there. In fact, Robin and myself are used to those days when we had to work full time and then be available for a tour every now and again. You tell your boss you're gone for 3 weeks. They're like, you must be mad. Mike, let's ask you the last question on this topic, which is you've been very creative with the USA side to keep the program going over the years. Also with Olympics coming up, I know that the US is in a unique position other than other countries have ministers of sport and they help fund programs. So how are you managing things for the Americans?
It's been a topsy-turvy 5 or 6 months. We're in bankruptcy or Chapter 11. So, we've managed to ring fence and keep the players financially where they need to be. And, as Henry's just said, in USA, the boys don't make a lot of money, but they love the game. They love being a part of the process. The staff have not been so fortunate. In terms of the last 5 or 6 months have been insanely hard, without pay for the majority of them, and just myself for the last 4 or 5 months, kind of a heavily reduced rate, trying to keep things alive. But again, we're a very unique type of program in the fact that, yes, we're so fortunate with our Olympic funding. That's where our funding comes from. We get, unlike England Sevens, who are reliant on the NGB providing a load of money, we get very little support in terms of dollars from our own NGB. It's from USOPC together with our private philanthropy. And it's our private philanthropy of the Golden Eagles which have ensured that we have been able to keep the program alive and protect the players to ensure that hopefully we can keep them together to push on for Tokyo 2021. And that's kind of comes back to that full circle to me about why understanding a private partnership and creating possible franchisees. And let's be creative here. Let's be called Amazon USA, or let's be called Honda Canada, whatever it takes. But with that comes, you're not selling the family silver a little bit, but you are relinquishing controls and marketing collateral. But if that secures and ring fence financial stability for programs to build effective sevens programs, and allows us to reposition the world of sevens to build what could be an unbelievable world circuit, and create even more icons and bigger stars in the game of sevens that people and young men and young women will aspire to be. Then, we've got that opportunity, but we need to seize the day. So,
Mike, we'll let you go first because I know you coached HB, but I had an idea a few months ago when we got rolling. I think it's so cool. You used to coach them, and now you guys are going head to head on the World Series. So we'll start with you. How did you first meet HP, and what were your earliest impressions?
Well, funny enough, the first time I'd watched HP a lot play rugby league, where he was box office as a young bloke. And interestingly enough, Wigan came to the Middlesex Sevens. I think it was 95. An unbelievable team of which Henry was their standoff, and they were unbelievable. And Henry had this insane ability to go off either foot, left or right, and he read the game so well. So I always watched him from afar as a player. And when they came that day and they blew the world apart, you could see he was a special talent. Then I got to see him up close and personal when he came to England Sevens, as he made the transition into Union. And the great thing about Henry as a player is he was never content with the current answer. So whatever the play, whatever the move, he was always looking to improve it, change it, make it better, keep that thinking and that creativity working. And sometimes, dependent on how you interpret that with Henry, it depends whether you saw him as that creative spirit, which is what he was, or is he trying to upset or change something? Henry's ability to read a game and make a decision at the coalface, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
And HP, what was your take playing for Friday? I guess early on and then later on.
Oh, I'm still gushing there, Robin. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I'll never say it again.
Yeah. No, I laughed when I first met Mike. Obviously, it was when I first met Mike, I knew going into that England Sevens environment, that camp with Joe Lydon, that I knew about Mike, and I knew his playing career with England Sevens. But he had that. To me, it sounded like a London gangster accent. All right, mate. And I used to just crack up laughing with him. But Mike, straight away from day one, I think we bonded just over initially Mike's knowledge of obviously rugby league, because and sport in general. So it's pretty easy to like Mike because we both had a lot in common in terms of sport. And then in terms of detail, being coached under Joe and Mike, and then Mike just on his own, they allowed you to play. We had structures in place. There was a framework. But I think the best thing about sevens is sometimes you can go outside of the framework. And being under a bunch of coaches, and especially at the time with England Sevens, where they allowed some freedom and let you play, but then always come back to what was pretty much our go-to, which was HP, get the ball to your wingers, because at that time we had phenomenal gas. Richard Horton, Ollie Phillips, Tom MacDowell, Dave Strettle, Hugo Monya. You could just reel off all of the best young talent for England, James Simpson, Daniel. And really, my job was pretty easy. Conduit to give the ball to those guys, and then pretty much watch them fly into the sunset and wrap around the post, score, try. And you take the credit for releasing those guys, but those guys didn't need a lot of space. And I think I bonded with Mike pretty quickly over him allowing freedom. And as a sevens player, you want that freedom because there is a lot of space, but always rein it back, always bring it back to what with the structure and the framework, which is pretty much what I do as my coaching regime, is to pretty much copy the blueprint of what Mike and Joe and all those guys before me have sort of laid down.
And HP, let's go to that halftime chat. So when I commentate on the Sevens World Series, we often have to apologize for anybody's language, right, in the huddle. And I know when I'm doing a USA game and the camera comes into Mike and the team is going to be shouting, there's going to be screaming, he's going to blow a gasket. And I'm just hoping he doesn't swear because then I have to apologize straight afterwards, you know. But tell us as a player, what was it like being in some of those huddles?
Yeah, I've seen some of those rants. To be honest, I don't really remember the ranting at us. I do remember colourful vocab from Mike. Wasn't really sort of targeted at any individual. I loved it, you know, because one, he had that funny accent, and that really like just brought me back down to, you know, it brought me back down to the focus. He was pretty, for me, it was pretty simple messaging, which is, you know, great. One or two things was always get that player, or where we need to improve this, or you're doing this really well. And he would just, I think the tone and the expression of it was probably the fun thing. It made you kind of giggle, you know, around all the chaos that's going on, and you come in and Mike would bring you straight back into, you know, laser focus. And then he'd have a word in your ear, something quite, that would be quite, could be quite inane or quite not even around the subject, just to bring you back into the moment about what you've got to do. And we had a pretty successful team back then. So we weren't really down in many games where we had to really sort of kick our butts, so to speak, and bring us back into the moment. Yeah, I've seen them pretty colourful at times.
Well,
yeah, it's fun. It's part of the passion. The energy is part of it.
It's totally part of it. Mike, let's go to you quickly on that, because obviously you've been around the series for so long. Give us your insight into coming into the halftime huddle.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ken. It is tailored to the team and the individual and to those moments. I'll be honest with you, it is. I think probably in my younger days, I was, as H has just said, I was probably more colourful because I was coming from a playing into a coaching. Believe it or not, and I know you lot have to apologise 9 times out of 10 when you leave the USA halftime huddle, but it's not me, it's Danny Barrett. He purposely now, consciously, I leave it and he chucks a couple of F-bombs in, just knowing that that's going to come out. That's what I have to live with the likes of Danny Barrett now. But I think, you know, as H has said, for me, I think I always do something to try and bring them back to the moment, to make them focus on what they've got to do next. And then I'll talk about 2 or 3 things that I want them to do or to continue doing, because that's all you can do. And then if I need to pick somebody off individually, that will happen whilst Madison's talking, or whilst one of the other boys are talking, or as I'm walking in or walking out. And you can only make small changes. You've got to have done your work before and after. And then, as Henry's just said, you've got to trust them to go out there and express themselves and give them their freedom. And sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes they get it right. That's unfortunately the beauty and the pain of the game that we play on the World Series.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear that. We spoke to Andy Friend, and his character is a little different. He's soft-spoken, you know, and so it's really interesting to hear from how you guys cope with your players. Let's go back a bit. Touring on the Sevens World Series, or touring in general, has changed tremendously over the years. You know, things you could do back then you can't do these days. Mike, anything on your side? Did you remember traveling or touring that involved HP or that team? We only have an hour. Okay, so
I think. Look, I've travelled with
Mike.
Yeah, I've travelled with HP as a player. I've travelled with HP as a coach, and I've travelled with HP as a veteran when we played vets rugby together as well for the Christina Noble. And I think the most important thing to note about Henry is, right, he's a proper character, and you know, Henry is an individual that is able to express himself both on the pitch and off the pitch. Henry is a great character socially. He knows how to enjoy himself, and he knows how to enjoy himself with everybody else. And I think that's a real positive part of being part of a squad. But the big thing about Henry was, as a player, is like rain or shine, whatever's gone on, whenever you call him to train, whether it's at 9 a.m. or wherever, Henry rocks up and he delivers. The unfortunate thing was that if we had, let's just say we'd had a colourful night the night before, which we did, if we think about Bali back after the Commonwealth Games in 2006. And I will tell this story because it's brilliant, right? Because Henry can turn up and deliver. But unfortunately, these young players like David Strettle back then and Matthew Tate and those guys, they can't. And I told them, look, you've got to deliver. We got to do this. You've got 48 hours to go mental. And believe me, as a group, management, players, we had an amazing time. But then we had to call it in. And I knew that Henry, well, I know what Henry's capable of doing, both like off the pitch and on it. And I knew that he'd probably push the boundaries, right? Which is exactly what you expect from Henry, because he does it on the pitch as well. And he was at the far end, and he had his visor on, and he had his sunglasses on. And I was like, I'm going to get you. And literally, I was like, right, we're running shuttles. And literally, we ran shuttles for 45 minutes. And Henry just kept going back, kept going, eyes forward, visors on. You had Tatey on his knees. You had Vandell. You had all of Strettle just hanging. And Amor, who's the captain, just looked across me, and he knew as well. And Simon was fit, and he was like, it's got to stop because it was hot. But Henry was like, I'm having none of it, mate. You ain't going to beat me. So in the end, I had to call it in and call it a day. But that's the beauty of a character like Sauce when you're out touring and when you're out, is that he is able to galvanise the boys off the pitch. But he's also, most importantly, when it comes to dealing with the business on it, he can do it. And that's the part of a journey that young players need to learn and need to be a part of where understand your body and where your boundaries are. And I mean, we've got some great stories, not for this podcast, but we've got some great stories. Henry, I've done a number of podcasts where they talk about your top tourists who you would bring with you. Canada are so fortunate, and they've got both Henry and they've got Kingsley, because they're in my top three every time, all the time when it comes to touring.
Well, they fit in well here, that's for sure. HP, what do you have for us on your side?
Thanks, Mike. That you put me down, let me down well there. I think my first memory of playing with England is at Hong Kong, and I think one of the lightest stories was at the end of the tournament we played. I don't think that first year, 2001, Mike, or 2002?
Yeah, 2001.
2001, and
in the rain.
Yeah, it was pretty wet. We played Fiji in the final, played Serevi, played a class Fijian team, and I don't think anyone really had seen much of England at that time to suggest that we would go on and win that tournament. And obviously, that still to this day, it's the tournament to win because of the hype around it and the history. And we won that tournament, and that night it became a tradition, which started for the next few Hong Kongs after that, is the dress shirt that you wear. We're at one of the bars, it might have been Joe Bananas or one of the pubs where it became a tradition to rip the pocket off your shirt, your dress shirt, because we're celebrating the win, and we're obviously going back to our clubs. And I just remember it was being in a bit of a haze. We're ripping each other's shirts, and basically the shirt would come off then. And I just reached out for this shirt and ripped this pocket off a shirt, and it wasn't one of our guys. It wasn't one of the team. And this luckily English guys just looked at me as I've ripped this shirt. He's going, "Oh, bloody hell, you're Henry Paul." And I'm going, "Yeah, really, I'll buy you a beer." So he got involved with ripping shirts, and it became a rip a shirt-a-thon, and that became a tradition. And it's a lovely tradition when you win. Yeah, I just have to be careful on who you pick as the person you're ripping shirts. And yeah, we had a lot of, I mean, off the field, I'd say that, to create some team spirit and build camaraderie, sometimes it's not all about what's happened on the field. It's built at training by all the hard work, and then going, being a good tourist, and that just makes those trips away, especially when you're away from your family and friends and your clubs. It makes it worthwhile. It makes all the hard work, why the reason you play, I think.
And how have you seen the series evolve since your playing days to now as a coach in the last 15, 20 years?
it's way more professional. There's a lot more put into the teams and to the coaching side of it. The coaching staffs are bigger, I'd say. But it's still got that intimate feel. It's still got that family atmosphere. I think we all want our teams to win, and we're quite hard on each other and our teams. But there's a nice camaraderie off the field as well, especially some of the guys that we know. Obviously, I know Mike, but even some of the new coaching staff that you come across. There's a real family atmosphere there, and you have like the conversations around rugby and also not around rugby, which is really nice, because you can sometimes become it's just all rugby, but you're sitting in airports for a long time, you're on buses for a long time, so that part of it's still the same, which is really nice.
And let's touch on your playing career as HB first. You excelled at both rugby union and league, 7s and 15s. What elements of each code did you like?
I like the money. Let's be honest. I played professional sport because I was a trainee teacher back in Auckland before I went to England. I signed a 4-year deal with Wigan. I'd signed for the Warriors. They were the Auckland Warriors at that time, and what was the NRL, the ARL at the time. So I was one of probably 20, 30 kids from about 15 to 18 that had signed for the Warriors. And I was in that production line where I don't think, I learned about professionalism quite early in my career. They sign a bunch of young kids up and then hope that you fight your way through and become a top professional. But I was able to leave Auckland because I was on that treadmill with them. And who knew if you get even a shot to play in the NRL. A lot of the guys that I played with, top young players, never went on and played top level premiership, top level rugby, because they just got lost in the numbers and the way that professionalism is. So I got away. I got out quite lucky. Worked out a deal between Wigan and Auckland, and I got to start pretty much from day one at 19 with that great Wigan side of probably that sort of mid 90s to 2000. And I mean the good things about rugby league are just being able to get the ball in your hand, play. Really similar to rugby. When I switched over to play for Gloucester, I joined the Gloucester team that wanted to experiment and play. And that suited me fine. I had guys around me at Gloucester at that time. Andy Gomersall just wanted to shift the ball a lot. Terry Whanaloa, Samoan, who he was just like, give me the ball, I'll hit it up and I'll give it back to you. We had to coax Ludovic Mercier out of kicking it all the time, which meant we basically had to beat him up at training and say pass the ball, because the guy had he had a rifle boot, cannon boot. They could shift at 60 meters. So, and then we had young wingers on our wings that wanted to see the ball. James Vincent Daniel, Marcel Garvey. So when I joined Gloucester, it was a great chance to just play again as well, get the ball, shift the ball, and really play rugby how it should be. This jouet play.
Yeah, that's I mean, such a fascinating career between the two different codes. We're going to come back to you because I have another follow-up question there. But Mike, let's go to you. What are some of your 15s and 7s highlights as a player?
Well, nowhere near Henry's. Put it that way. I mean, completely different. I mean, look, my career was a little bit. I was at Wasps as a youngster, part of the Colts and the under-21s with same team as Delalio, Wally. We all came through at the same time, and we were part of these kind of 19, 20-year-olds that won the Middlesex Sevens back in '93. We beat Samoa, who were the Hong Kong champions. We went on to come back and beat Northampton in the final from being 24-5 down. So it was, for young kids against a full-bore Northampton team. So but back then when I was playing, there was only 2 subs on the bench, and you only got on if they were injuries. No. So I left to go and get rugby. So I moved down a division and went to Blackheath for 4 or 5 years, played rugby there, and then came back to Wasps in '97. And, within that time, I kind of got close to England A, but not really, because I was the same age as Dawson and Bracken, and I wasn't as good as them. So the reality was I had to carve a different niche away from the club game, and I wasn't what you would say a passing scrum half. I was a running scrum half, which is always a problem. So I found my niche and my opening in sevens, which kind of suited my kind of maverick, the way I played the game. So I went with England to the Commonwealth Games in '98, Kuala Lumpur, which was an experience. And then obviously with England to the World Cup in 2001 in Argentina, where again, we always played we had an exceptional group of players on paper, but we never took it seriously. I mean, we always met 2 days before or the night before and flew and just got on with it. And you were coming up against a New Zealand team that had been in camp for 4 or 5 weeks, the same with the Australians and so forth. So we were always good for that one performance, but never the continuity of 3 or 4. So I had a what I would say an average kind of playing career. I had great times at London Wasps, and enjoyed playing with some great players. And I had a great time playing with England and playing on the Invitation 7 circuit as well. So I was just fortunate enough to bridge the amateur and the professional game. So I got to make sure I had a balanced outlook on life, but more importantly, was able to experience the early days of professionalism where you are allowed to be yourself. Whereas I think nowadays that the new age professional, they're a different type of person, and a different character to manage and be, which is an interesting evolution over the last kind of 15, 20 years within the professional game of rugby.
I love, Mike, how you said you weren't much of a passing scrum half, but when HP joined your team, you're like, just pass the ball. All I want you to get out to the wingers.
Like, do as I say, not as I did, right? That's one of those great things as a coach.
Like, I can't call you the geezer because I don't know your nickname, and Hirayama let out one of my old nicknames that I despise. But where does geezer come from?
It's a nickname I got given when I was at Wasps when I was like a 19-year-old, and back then there was this song by the Shaman called Ebenezer Good. Easy good, Ebenezer Good. And I was the only bloke from London Wasps, which was northwest London, that was from southeast London. So my accent's different to all of the other boys in London, as Henry has so articulately put.
I said he's like, that's what I said when I first heard him speak. It's like, oh no, like there's a New Zealand thing, right? What do I know about London and gangsters? Mike's a gangster. He just obviously went into real estate, but that's a front. That's a total front. That's his like secret identity in the background. He's just, mate, chopping knees. He's taking people out.
Now, HP, your journey, of course, fascinating, playing league for New Zealand. And then how were you able to transition and kind of get into the England setup in Union?
That was a fascinating time. I mean, family history, my grandfather's English. He was born in Liverpool, brought up in Keswick in Cumbria. I found this all out when I signed for Wigan and moved over. Met my aunties, some great aunties in Manchester. Took them to bingo a couple of times. I learned about bingo. That was fascinating. But yeah, so I was able to travel. I was able to sign that deal in England basically because I could get an English passport through Ancestry. So I did that. Got my British passport. Some dual passport holder. And then, I had like amazing time with New Zealand Rugby League. Loved my career with Rugby League and with Wigan and Bradford, London Broncos at the end of my career there. But when rugby went professional, we'd had a taste of that crossover game with against Bath, Rugby League up in Main Road, the old man city home ground. Then obviously played Bath at Twickenham, which was fascinating. Exciting. Then we played the Middlesex Sevens, and there was a buzz there. And then I'd always seen, growing up in New Zealand, seen the Hong Kong Sevens, seen Sevens, the format. And then just when I went professional, when rugby union went professional, I thought, why not? I always love a new challenge, and that was presented to me. I'd done a lot in the game in rugby league, and I just felt I wanted something fresh and new, and sat down and talked with a few clubs, and Gloucester just took my eye. Really took a real big shine to them. They reminded me a lot of Bradford, hardworking, close to the community type club. So I, relished that challenge, and then obviously when I switched over, Clive Woodward knew my ancestry, and asked me if if there would be a possibility there. You qualify for England, would you play? Spoke to my folks about it. My dad's a proud Maori, my mum's proud English woman. So I had no problem switching my allegiance. And I'm in a really fortunate place now. Whether it's rugby league, rugby union, England versus New Zealand, it's a win-win for me. I don't see why I can't be proud of both sides of my family. And so I just whenever I got that chance to play for England, I relished it and was as proud as playing for New Zealand Rugby League. So
we're going to switch gears back into coaching here, and how you both started. We'll start with the youngster, Henry Paul. So how did you get your start in coaching?
I suppose like every player that's coming through, I did a lot of coaching clinics for certain clubs, whatever club I played for. Coming from a teaching background initially, I'm a big kid myself, so I got no problem jumping out in a field of kids and starting up a game of whatever, whether it's scarecrow tag or just touch rugby. So I was always asked to go and do clinics at first, and then camps, and then that progresses into helping out a couple of nights a week at different clubs because you're mates or friends of the family. So I was always going to different trainings, and it was good for my rugby career, my own rugby self. Getting to run around during the day professionally, and then in the evenings jump out against some amateur club and get stood up by some amateur player that's working a job as well. I'd be like, "Whoa, that's embarrassing! I got to lift my game." So I did all that during my playing career, and then my real start was Steve Diamond, who was a friend of mine and someone I bumped heads with. He was coaching Sale Sharks a lot during my career, and he was my England Saxons coach. He was looking for a coach. I was just coming out of my sort of playing career at Leeds Carnegie. He wanted, I was chatting to a team in maybe Japan to keep my career, keep going, hanging on in there. And Steve asked me if, I'd like to spend 2 weeks in Denver and a week in New York coaching the Russian team in their preparation for the Rugby World Cup in 2011. I said, yeah, of course I'd love to. So I went and did that 3-week stint with them, and we were pretty successful. Took the England team pretty close, beat Uruguay. So they asked if I would stay on and coach in the ENC and then coach in the Rugby World Cup. And I thought, well, when will I get the chance coaching the Rugby World Cup, especially in New Zealand? So I took that chance, and I'd never looked back from playing. I literally retired that summer and took over that Russian team with Steve, became his attack coach. And then a year and a half into that, after the World Cup, they asked me to be the head coach for the Sevens, and they were trying to get on, become a core team. We played a couple of tournaments on the World Series.
Mike, we'll jump over to you, how you got your career started, and then also how you transitioned into business after you finished up with England. Yeah,
I mean, for me, I first kind of got into coaching when I did my ACL and I was still playing back in kind of 97, 98. And I needed something else to go alongside the rehab. So I agreed to do my local club, my grassroots club, where I'd learned as a 5-year-old, and just to give a bit back really, and enjoyed it, got into it, and started and ended up doing my level 1 and level 2. We ended up having a great couple of years, and when I got back fit, I just continued doing it whilst I was alongside playing. because Wasps back then normally played on a Sunday, not a Saturday. So I was able to attend the games and do a bit of that. So that's kind of how I got started in coaching. And then the reality is how I ended up getting my kind of, what I'd say my first real break in coaching was probably off the back of the 2001 World Cup Sevens, where I was captain. And I'd had such a terrible experience with the coach and everything, all the things that, you know, sometimes you learn the most from the people that are a bad experience. And there was an application for the England Sevens coach. And I thought, I was still playing. I was still at Wasps. So I applied. And I got down to I was on the final interview, and I was in front of Clive, John Spencer, and back then the performance director, Chris Spice, and went well. I then got a call 3 weeks later saying, look, we haven't given you the job because you should still be playing. And I still had a year to go on my Wasps contract as well. But, you know, we're going to give it to Joe Lydon. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But he's going to contact you. And I'd already said I'm not playing anymore. I said I'm done with sevens. And he phoned me 2 weeks later. He said, will you come on and be my kind of be my technical assistant? And I said, yeah, I am, but I'm still playing at Wasps. I'm just starting my surveying career again. And he said, right. He said, no, but I said, but okay, fine. And he said, but there's one condition, is you've got to play. To which I was like, oh my God. Right. I mean, by then, you know, your fitness starts to do that when you're getting to 30. And you're not putting in what you need to be putting in. So those first 4 or 5 tournaments, just before Henry arrived as a player, I actually had to play as well some of the time, which was a nightmare because, again, you make the mistakes on the pitch that you're asking them not to make. So that's how I got my first break, and I really focused more on the technical side then, making sure my detail was right, because I'm going to have players on the Premiership that knew what they were doing, so you can't bluff them. You've got to know what you're talking about, and then it's about how you can build those effective relationships to get the best out of them. So that's how I ended up in it, and then I kind of took multiple pathways from there on.
That's really interesting. And just, you know, one thing that took me back when I was playing for Canada when you were coaching England is when you decided to step out, and you obviously focused on your business for a while. And I'm just, you know, obviously, you know, running the U.S. men currently and living in England, you must be an expert at man management, and I just want to know some background on how your business has helped you be, you know, a successful coach.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think at the end of the day, whether you're in business or whether you're in sport, obviously people's the business, and being very self-aware and having awareness of others and empathy and being authentic with your people and your players. I mean, look, there's no secret that I stepped away in 2006, just after Henry went back to rugby league. And we'd had such a fabulous 2006 season. We just missed out on winning the World Series. We were silver medal at Commonwealth Games. And everything we'd done with England had been player-centred. So we were going into those last 2 legs going for the title. But the reality was that Henry had to make a decision to go to rugby league. So that was the right decision for Henry. So you've got to go, sir. You know, we had 5 players that could either stay and do the last 2 legs of the Sevens or had to go on the Saxons tour. Well, the right thing for you is to go on the Saxons tour. So we always understood where we sat, and I was comfortable with that. It wasn't necessarily about winning; it was about player-centered decisions to allow them to become the best versions of themselves. The real reason why I left England, probably back in 2006, is that, like all things, what was going on at board level and the way that players were being compromised on their development for access to other things upset me. And as a coach, I've got to look those players in the eye, and if I can't look them in the eye, then there's a saying in England, you either piss or get off the pot. And I was like, well, do you know what? I'm not doing this. I've had a great time, but I'm not compromising my values. So I stepped away from England and went back into my property business and building and being a part of city life, which I was an investment surveyor in shopping centres, but ultimately what they used me for was to build teams within the commercial business, which is around people and understanding personalities and understanding what makes each individual tick to try and get the best out of them. And that's something that I've always tried to do wherever I've gone and whoever I've touched, whoever I've been with, whether that's being blunt, the the kit man or the CEO. You know, they're all the same to me. They're people, and they just deserve to be treated accordingly. So that's probably my underlying point wherever I've gone, is I try and be authentic, which means that I don't always get it right. I might upset some people, but it's with genuine interest that I will do that, and I'll always try and do the right thing, first and foremost.
Yeah, it's always interesting hearing people's backgrounds, how they've merged their outside life into rugby. HP, let's go to you for a second. You mentioned the Russian experience. Have you got any interesting stories about your time behind the Iron Curtain?
How long is this podcast? Every day was a story in Russia. I loved my time there. I love my time with this England Sevens with Mike, and just quickly on that, I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but when I look back now at that 2006 series where we were cruising it, when I left to go back to rugby league, because I had my time up, was up at Gloucester. I was coming out of that, transitioning out of that, my 5 seasons at Gloucester, and I signed that deal with London Broncos to go back to rugby league. And Mike's right. My relationship with Mike was great. One thing I regret is not finishing off that series with them, but also had that relationship now with Tony Ray, the coach of London, who really was desperate to get me there to London and hopefully inject some energy and some spark into those boys at the time. And there's one thing I probably regret, because we only had to go into that last game at Twickenham. I think we just had to make the semi-final. Was it Mike?
Final.
We just had to make. Yeah, I thought the boys had it. I thought the boys would have nailed it. And obviously, as sevens, it's a crazy, rugby sport in general. You slip up, you make one mistake, and the game's gone. And we ended up coming second that year, and we'd done so much. We'd won Hong Kong, we'd won in Los Angeles, we'd won. We'd been right there. So it's probably the one regret that kind of led MacDowell, that team down by going, being a bit selfish, but I had to look after me and my family. I went back to rugby league, so Mike knew that, and all the boys knew that. But it's the one regret, because I thought they had it, but I didn't obviously realise the amount of other boys that were shooting off for that Saxons trip as well. So, but yeah, Russia, mate, really exciting, really great adventure. Like I said, every day, you fly from Manchester or wherever into Moscow, into Sheremetyevo or Domodedovo Airport, and it was an adventure. We had really, great, once, because I'd grown up in New Zealand watching Americanized TV, and the Russians were only ever a U-boat commander, and there was always firing weapons on the Americans or the English. When actually you're in Russia and you're with the people, man, the best people ever, the most accommodating, the most friendly, give you the shirt off your back, when you get to know them. So I love my time there. I love my time with the players, with the management. Got nothing but positives, and some funny stories. Like when we one of the best for me was we had to name a 50 for the World Cup, and we had a board meeting to lay out, and to be honest, to pick the Russian team, I don't say it was easy, but the depth of playing, there's only really 6 professionalized teams there. So the good players really stand out quite quickly. So we had our 30 for the World Cup, and we had to obviously add 20 other guys to that list to present to World Rugby 3 months before the tournament. And when we're in a bit of a board meeting there, Zork Masandilov, our manager, he was reading these names, started to read through the names, and he just started laughing. The board members are there, and Zork's kind of reading through this list, and as he's going down through name by name, he's just pissing himself laughing. And myself and Kinsey are looking at Zork going, well, why are you laughing at? Like, it's just our team list. He's going, oh, yes, HP, the team list, no problem, but this man here, Alexander Yushchenov, he died in the war, World War II. And he started to read through these names where one person had lost an arm. They were like 90. half the team were dead that they had left. So someone and that was the thing, there was a communication error where someone had just put down 50 ex-Russian rugby names, none of the current squad. And so this squad that was going to be presented to World Rugby were from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. None of them were, some of them were dead. Some of them had lost limbs and accident. It was comical. And there was a lot of things. It was probably the language barrier, the communication was at times frustrating, but at other times it was hilarious.
You had a real stitch up there. I was going to say, the fact that you said the Russian, the friendliest people you've met, that's one of the few people to say that, right? Because as outsiders, like even the Sevens World Cup that was in Moscow in 2013, that was I would say, an interesting experience for us foreigners kind of traveling in there and seeing the military with their machine guns and stuff like that at the Seven Stadium where they outnumbered the fans. That was a really interesting one, wasn't it?
It's a shame because like I said, when you get to know the people, I can't even count on them. I need a dozen people's hands to the amount of meals I went to, spreads that were laid on for me, and I was just going around to talk about some player identification, and next minute there's a feast on, just food there is amazing, obviously borscht, soup, and but just everything was laid on all the time. It was like a banquet. For me personally, I love my time there, and got nothing but credit to those guys. And it's a tough place to try and grow a sport like rugby. It's so the size of the country is huge, and there's a lot of people putting their hands in their pockets to try and fly the guys around and give us the best chance to put a team together that was, handy. When you look at Krasnoyarsk in Siberia to VVA in Moscow, you're talking about 10, 11-hour flights, and at a big cost. So there was, they tried their best, and they're trying their best to, grow the sport there.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, as you're finding, and Mike, being in North America, distances are an issue there, but Russia's next level, Mike, let's go back to you. Let's fast forward to the current last couple of seasons. So last year, of course, most consistent team for the United States ever. Everybody's so proud, and it was phenomenal. How do you think, or what will take to get the US back to that now that the Olympics is pushed on to next year?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting one for us. This last season as well, we came in with a lot of injuries at the start of this season, which we're not finished, and so we've had to grow our depth. So everybody was like, "Well, you've gone back." Well, we haven't gone back. We've just evolved again, and the fact of the matter is that the Seventh Circuit is unforgiving, and what we've got to do is grow our depth, not just for today, but also for tomorrow. So what we've seen over the first 6 legs, where at times we were a little bit inconsistent and made some schoolboy errors, but when you looked at who was making those errors, they were young guys finding their way, and you've got to get it wrong to get it right, unfortunately. And especially with our athletes and our rugby players whose rugby EQ age is more immature than the traditional rugby nations. I think with the Olympics being a year later down the line, in theory, we will have everybody back now, and everybody will be fit and ready to compete at the start of whenever the start may be. I think the challenge is for some of them, they're a year older, right? So it's whether they can still hang with those youngsters that now are a year older too, and will be a year wiser and a year more experienced and a year better for all of the constructive, negative, bad experiences they had in these last 12 months. So, I think I'm hopeful that the hunger's there for those that have been there for a number of years, and the drive to try and kick on and finish a job in Tokyo. But I'm also excited for the enthusiasm and the energy that these less experienced guys who will be hungry to dislodge and see 2021 as an opportunity to get one of those 1 to 12 shirts, which they might not have thought was an opportunity in 2020. So then it's down to whether or not I can manage and keep that kind of herd of cats, even though they're dogs, all kind of pointing in the right direction.
HB, you found some real form in your first year at the helm, winning bronze medal at the Vancouver Sevens. Do you feel this incremental year is going to add to the development of your side or the forming of your side and give you another year to get your feet wet as head coach?
Yeah, I think it was devastating, obviously for all athletes, and I've got a lot of sympathy for a lot of the sports out there that I suppose they had to push the Olympics because of obviously this pandemic, and I feel really sympathy for some athletes that in other sports, because they may have to retire. A lot of athletes were probably thinking this is their swan song. So I don't know. I think hopefully we can keep our squad together. There'll be some challenges for sure. There's some challenges already. I don't know. We were building nicely. I've not been in the job for too long, so players are still learning. My processes and protocols, and I'm still learning about them. The biggest takeaway I ever took away from Mike and my time with him was how easily he transitioned people in, whether you're a young kid from National One coming into our environment for the first time. Most of the time he used to put those kids with me, and I'd have to mentor, which meant we got up to trouble a lot of times and go against the grain of what the rest of the team were doing and go off on our own and do our own little moves. And but I suppose that's one of the things I try to learn as I'm not a young coach. I wish I could say I was young, but not been on the circuit, especially the sevens, for a while, and with a team like Canada that's got a lot of potential. Now maybe having to transition some young guys in potentially. I'd love to keep the squad together. I think that we do, like I said, we did improve over the course of the 6 competitions, but now we have to reset, start again. So it's going to, and that's the same for everyone probably. We want to give some goals and some dates and plan, but right now, like everyone in every walk of life, we're kind of all it's a bit unknown. So yeah, first job is to keep the squad together, and then just build on what we've been building in the last 9 months.
Now, another question is that, obviously being connected to the men in Canada, there's a number of guys that have come back from professional contracts. Connor Traynor, Sean Dukes away from obviously med school, and then a number of the guys that have been in the program for 10 years or so that are hanging on and still performing mentally and physically. Those guys have been fighting for this on and off the field for a number of years. But also being involved in the development pathway, I know a lot of these young guys might be pushing. So I know if I was a young man, I'd be chomping at the bit as well, which is obviously, going to raise the competition. Do you see any young guys putting their hand up now with a year extension to the build up in Canada?
Yeah, there's a bunch of young guys, but they're my secret. They're my X factor. So I'm not. No, there's no one coming through. We're struggling. No, there's the U20 guys. There's some talented guys there. I think the future's bright for 7s and 15s. We want to try and give them some good pathways. The pandemic doesn't help because we had a U20s. We're getting ready to go for a big tour and things like that. Things like to improve, like what Mike said, that EQ, and give them some more rugby experiences where. You're right. You got to make the mistakes. One thing I've always been proud of Mike. When you have a relationship with someone, and I saw how well Mike did with Kenya and how well Mike did with USA. I've always been really proud of him. And I know that guy. I know that guy shouting in the middle of the tunnel or in the middle of the huddle. Yeah, I know that guy. And then people ask me, why is he so crazy? I said, no, it's passion. That's passion. It's not craziness. We're trying to build that. What the guys in this current Canadian team have done is created a lot of interest and buzz and energy for these young guys coming through. So I hope that all of them stay around and battle and keep their bodies right, and we'll try and do our best to help them through that, so they can, because they were gutted of missing out in 2016 in Rio. So they've proved and they've earned the right to go to Japan. So let's hope that we can get them all through there.
Yeah, and I think overall for Canada and the U.S. to both be going to men and women is huge for the sport in North America. And I think for it's valuable for global rugby, for the sport to grow in this market, in this region. I got an X Factor question that I didn't run by Dallen here, but I woke up this morning early to see that DTH is leaving Glasgow. So I'm like, where's he going next? So I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it. Is there any chance that he's relocating back to my island here and fighting for a spot, or is that off the record?
What a player! What a job he did for us in the repechage. The guys, I got nothing but admiration. Like, he's an awesome player, wicked player. I'd love to have DTH as part of this program. Same with Tyler John. You target players, because you've just thrown this on me. So, would he fit in this program? For sure. Can the guy play? Outstanding player, proven it consistent over loads of years, and he was awesome for us in that repechage in Marseille to get into the World Cup. But is that realistic right now? I don't know. Like, D, if you're listening to this podcast, give me a call.
We'll have to go live. We'll have to go live today. Well, we've talked to Andy Friend this week, as well as Clark Laidlaw last night, about bringing in the big names. Obviously, other teams have tried it, but the common message is they got to be in well enough time. That way, you're just mixing with the tribe and mixing with the culture. So, that's one thing. So, I mean, if this is news to you, then probably he's sticking with the 15s code. Okay, all right, we're just getting on to our final question for both of you, and we'll start with you, Mike. What's it like coaching on the World Series against one of your former players like HP?
I mean, it's great. I mean, I love it. I mean, for me, it's great because it's the next generation, and I'm not. Henry is getting on a bit as well, but it is the next generation. It's great for me to see players that coached under me and played for me now branching out and being successful as coaches. And you're seeing a lot of, for example, Henry's character, creativity clear in the way that his players are playing for him and the way he goes about his business. And for me, it's a joy because as Henry's touched upon, the World Circuit, the World Series. When it's Saturday, Sunday, battle lines are drawn, you cross the white line, everybody is just wide-eyed and it's all out. But when we're in the hotel before, afterwards, we'll often be sat at the table, we'll be having a yarn, we'll be talking, we're looking out for one another because it is a big family. It's a travelling circus. It's a mad circus. But, everybody genuinely wants everybody to do well. It's just those 2 days at the weekend where, as it should be, it's all-out warfare. It's Colosseum. It's Gladiator. And as I said, Henry's done a fantastic job with picking up the Canadian team and getting them to where they were. I mean, Vancouver, they were outstanding. Like, just recently, absolutely outstanding. You could see the confidence. You could see the way they were playing off the edges, which is kind of how Henry would keep the ball alive as a play. He talked about the fact, I just used to serve the wingers. He didn't just used to serve the wingers. He used to hold the middle of the pitch to ensure that the wingers had space. And if people over-pursued, he would see it, it'd be gone, and they'd come back the other way. So that ability to transfer what you knew as a player into other players so they can see it too is a skill. And you can see that Henry is educating and allowing those players to grow, not only technically, but there's a placebo thing, which is confidence. And that comes from your coach believing in you, nurturing you, mentoring you, supporting you. And, Henry's doing a fantastic job. Amor did an amazing job with England, and look where he's moved on to now. Tim Walsh, again, did a lot of stuff with me, with Samurai, years gone by. He's doing phenomenally well with Australia. So for me, it's great to see all of these boys out there enjoying it, plying their trade, earning a living and pushing the game forward.
Yeah, you must be very proud. I had a chance to coach against the late Rick Sudgett. I was coaching Mexico at 2016 Olympic qualifiers, and he coached me with Canada for a number of years. And there's a picture of us hanging out right before the kickoff, and just having a laugh and a hug. So he was. I was a kiddie cut for 7 years, so he was so proud of where I'd come to. And but then once it was kickoff, it was all business and side bets. But
how it should be.
yeah, all business. HP, how about you? How does it feel coaching against one of your former mentors and coaches?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and that's I've always relished the challenge. Mike with his team, even with his young team or inexperienced with the guys that he's bringing through. It's been such a pleasure to play against them, and it's pleasure to play against all the coaches, because everyone. The good thing is there's a different style and a different dynamic amongst all the teams. So when you analyze and you look at it, it's like, man, that is different to them, and obviously Fiji are different to Samoa, and Samoa are different. So the challenge with the USA, with their big men, their speed, with me and Mike can have a wink and a bit of a giggle, but yeah, I love that challenge, and I love seeing him, work on the side. Like I watch him and Rocky. I watch all. You watch and learn, and you pick up things. And you maybe get rid of a few things that maybe poor habits that you do as a coach that you want to try and get rid of. You look at the experienced guys, and you used to watch Sir Gordon Titchens. How he used his mannerisms and stuff. So yeah, I'm still learning on the circuit, and it's great to to be able to off the field, sit back, talk to Mike, sit and have a coffee, have a little giggle about something that happened or something serious. These teams are doing that, and talk about other teams, little bits of advice, little tidbits, because we do so much ourselves. But just hearing a little thing about that guy's steps, man, you always go, and you're like, man, how did I miss that? That's huge. And little things in this game, detail can be huge. So, I relish it. I also love obviously coaching against Simon Amor, Rodwell, John Brake, the guys at England now, guys I played with against. Santi at Argentina. Again, another nice guy off the field, but those guys on the field in the game's intense. It's what it's another way of sort of having that competition. I can't do it now. I can't run around and dump some guys off and sit and spin, but can maybe devise and work with your team to still get that competition feeling and buzz and adrenaline that you used to get on match days when you played.
Just to wrap up, on behalf of both Dallen and I, we were thrilled to have you both on today, and just really cool to have some of your insights, and we'd love to get you back on either individually or together again pre-Olympics and throughout next year, and just kind of follow your team's developments and dig down a bit more.
Yeah, appreciate it, boys. Thanks.
Take care. Best wishes.
Cheers now.
Beautiful ball over the top. Yes, Seppo!
Thank you for listening, you sleek sensations.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to Rugby Hive podcast and catch us on all the socials at Rugby Hive.
We appreciate your support. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
They've taken the lunch money from Sunday.